What's up, guys? We're back. Today I'm gonna do a couple grafts, and I do get questions here and there about grafting, and some of you guys are pros. I'm not a pro. I've done a lot of grafts to know that, you know, sometimes you get it right, sometimes it doesn't work out, but the key is to just keep on going and seeing if you can actually get it right. So I'm not a pro where I've done 1,000 grafts, but I've done enough grafts, and I want to show you guys how I do things. So there's people who do things completely different. There's tons of YouTube videos about how to graft. You might want to kind of do a search on YouTube. You'll definitely find a bunch, but I just want to share how I do it and the things that I look for. This right here is a really nice looking piece. This is some people are calling this Black Beauty, but it's a seedling from somebody that's local here, and I've tasted the fruit and I really like it. So I actually went and visited the tree, and it's very vigorous, very productive. The fruit is ready like right now at this time of the year, so that's kind of nice to have a fruit at this time of year. So this is a piece that I cut off of the tree, and what I wanted to show you is why I'm selecting this piece right here, because there's nice buds throughout this piece here. So with this size of scion wood, I'm looking at it, I can probably cut this into two pieces and graft two different rootstock, or graft two different areas, and double my chances of having one of them take. So selection of wood is probably one of the most important things. If it's nice and green still like this and it's freshly harvested, is okay, but it doesn't need to be relatively freshly harvested. I mean, usually you can cut this, you can put it into like a Ziploc bag and put it into a fridge with a little damp paper towel. And I've heard of people, and as a matter of fact, I've had pieces of wood in the fridge for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and they still take. So depending on the variety, you never know, right? So if it's still green like this, the chances are pretty good. Let's say you collected your scion wood and you got all these leaves. So what I do, you can see in between the leaves and the branch, or in between this leaf and the branch, there's a bud right there, there's a bud right there, there's a bud right there. So I just take the leaf and I just break it off. You'll hear it snap like that, and like that, snap, snap, and just kind of work your way up, take all the leaves off, and here's all of your buds. So you got a piece of scion wood right there. So what are the things that really is needed to be able to do something like this, right? I use parafilm M. This is what I use. There's different types of, there's like buddy tape and things like that, but this is what I like to use. So I'll link all this stuff down below. Through Amazon, you can actually just pick up a whole roll of this. And then I also like to have something like this, which is just a little blade, and these are cheap. I mean, you can get a whole box of these for relatively nothing really, and I have these blades all over the house. I use it to open up boxes. And I actually labeled this one graft, so I don't use it for anything else but grafting. So need a nice pair of cutters. I kind of cleaned these already, so it's a good thing. And then, so what do we do, right? We have this piece of scion wood. This way is up, this way is down. You can see the buds are pointing in that direction. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this into two pieces, and then I'm gonna wrap it. So I'll show you how I do that real quick. Let me cut this, I think about right there. Okay, we'll save this bottom piece. So this top piece right here, this freshly cut section down here, we're going to wrap this whole thing up with parafilm. So let's do that right now. So with the parafilm, I just use my blade. I cut a piece off. And on the top side here is the film, and the bottom there's like paper. So I just kind of stretch the film, peel off the paper, and then the parafilm is very stretchy, right? So you can grab it and pull it. You'll feel it getting thinner. And you see this section's thicker, this section's thinner. So I start kind of from the top. So I start from the top and I go down. The reason why I start from the top is so I can make sure that I seal the top to keep the moisture in. So sometimes I'll double wrap the top section, keep the moisture in. So as I'm going, I'll stretch it, wrap, I'll stretch it some more. You can see it stretching and getting thinner, and I'll just wrap it as I'm going down. So I'm trying to look at the video as I'm wrapping it, so that's been making it a little difficult to kind of, but you get the idea, right? So, and I kind of overlap it. I don't do one single layer. You can see like maybe right there, that's a double layer because there's one underneath it. So it's a double layer. You can even, because this is so thin, you could do a triple layer. So sometimes I'll go back. So if you pull it too hard, it will break because it's very thin. But I will sometimes go back and then do another layer over the top here, and that's okay too. So just kind of wrap it. All right, so now I'm actually going back to the top, and we're pretty much done with this section. You got your buds here, and this bottom section is where we're going to cut and then do our graft. So let's do that quickly here. So I don't know how well this is going to show up on video, but I'll try my best to kind of get in there so you can actually see. This piece right here is where we're going to cut this piece of rootstock that we're going to graft our scion onto. The idea is that you want your scion to be about the same diameter as the piece that you're going to graft it onto. So it doesn't have to be exact, but the closer you are, the better you are. So I feel like at this point right here, it gets a little thicker down here. So I'm going to cut right there. So we'll do that. I'm trying to get it into focus so you can actually see. So now that we cut this, you can see the scion and the rootstock close to the same diameter, right? So now what I do is this is a cleft graft, so I just take my little X-Acto style razor blade utility knife and I just kind of cut it down the middle here. What's nice about this little utility blade is that I go down as deep as this section right here, so the blade is like right below the surface here. So based on that, I know that the depth of my cut is about that deep. So now I get my little scion, I cut it to be about that same depth. So you want to try to do one smooth stroke as you're cutting it. All right, that's good enough right there. So essentially that's the width of my razor blade, and that's how deep I know that I cut this piece of rootstock down to. So now it's just a matter of inserting it. Very simple, but you want the cambium layer to touch. So the whole idea is that once you insert it, so now you can even move it to one side. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle. If your scion wood is a little bigger than the rootstock, you can push the scion to one side. That ensures that you have at least one area where it's fully touching. Okay, not sure if this is coming in well, but essentially I push my scion into the rootstock, and I kind of moved it over to the side to allow this side to be flush, like that. This area to be flush and this area to be flush here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this with the parafilm. So grab some more parafilm, prep it, yeah, stretch it a little. So you just wrap. Try to go tight if you can. And wrap. Sorry, it's not coming in the screen here, but essentially you get the idea. You're just wrapping your graft. So now that you got it wrapped, what I do is I use a rubber band to kind of hold this piece together, right? So just a little rubber band, and I usually start from the bottom and I kind of go up. And don't stretch the rubber band so tight. Just have it tight enough that it applies pressure, but not so tight that you can break the rubber band, right? So then I just do that, and then I loop back around to the other side here, and I do another quick a double on this side. I just go once, twice, and then pull it. And what I like to do, just to tidy things up, I'll come back with the razor blade. I'll cut the ends of the rubber bands off. I like that. So now that the rubber band is applying pressure on the scion and your rootstock, so now I actually come in with a piece of parafilm and wrap the rubber band. And the main reason why I do that is because the rubber band, what happens is when you stretch it and when things get hot and it's exposed to environment, it will actually just kind of like break down and fall apart. So this kind of keeps the rubber band a little bit more, I would say, moist and elasticy, and helps kind of keep it going and staying on here for enough time to allow the scion to kind of fuse on here. So that pretty much is it. Hopefully it's not too out of focus so you can actually see it, but again, the rootstock, the scion, you do your V-cut, push it in, and the key is to align the cambium layer. and then I do the rubber band. Now, you can use like a little plastic bag, and you could cover this, and it acts like a little mini greenhouse in here, so that will help it. But really, you don't need to. Some people do. You can do it. That doesn't mean that if you don't, it's going to fail. I typically kind of leave it just like that, and I'm going to have to come back and actually label this, because you don't want to come back a month later. You're going to be like, what was this that I grafted? You're not going to remember. So I need to come back and then label this to make sure I have the correct label on here. But we're essentially done. Now, one thing you want to do is with this, you want to put it into like a shaded area for now to allow this thing to kind of get going. You don't want to put this in the middle of your field with the sun beating on it. Not a good idea. So keep it in a shaded area for now. And if you have an area where it's a little bit more sunny, you might want to put like a brown paper bag over this. And that's something I've done that really helps it. But at this point, it's just a waiting game, right? Now, you may see the buds start to swell up, in a couple weeks. And you may be kind of like thinking, oh, I need to peel off this parafilm to get the buds to go. No, do not touch it. This thing will break through the parafilm and it will just kind of grow out of it. So don't touch it. I mean, when I first started, because I was so curious to see what it looks like, I would kind of start picking at it. But what I've learned is do not pick at it. Just kind of like leave it alone, and it will definitely push through. And the bud will push through and break through the parafilm. And from there, it would just take off. So just a quick one. Nothing complicated about it. It does take a little practice, and it's actually not very hard. If you got a good rootstock that's pretty, that's kind of strong, and you got a good piece of scion you should be fine. These things are pretty resilient. They actually, when I started using the rubber band and the parafilm, my take rate went from 40% to like 80%, 80-90%. So I expect this to take, but you never know. Sometimes things happen, you just don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to do a quick video to kind of show you some of the things that I do for grafting. It's very simple, but the key takeaways are: one, the rubber band, that seems to help me, and making sure you don't pick at it once you do the parafilm. Keep your graft in a cooler, shaded area to allow this thing to kind of heal. Once it pushes out, don't remove the parafilm, just leave it on there. It will just naturally kind of fall apart by itself. Anyways, have a great day. We'll talk later. See ya.